Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Nadex Morning Analysis. It is Friday. Oh, wow, I just realized this. It's August 13th. Of course, it's Friday the 13th. Brian and I are chatting in the background, just catching up after he was out yesterday, and we just simply lost track of time. So sorry, we're starting a couple minutes late. All right, I am Todd Rich with Nadex. With me, back, yay, Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. Before we get into today's analysis, I do need to share the disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. All right, so what are we going to be talking about today? And if I can move my screen, give me 1 second. I'm going to show you the first story of the day is going to be gold. And we will talk about gold. We had what people are referring to at the beginning of the week. I mean, we can see it on Monday. There was a flash crash. Uh, Gold just spiked lower to kind of recover, and what we're seeing now is over the course of the week, it has come back to that level where it just turned south, and it's actually tested it a couple of times. In fact, if I pull this over, we can see we are exactly right there. And the interesting thing the part about this is no one really understood what this flash crash was about. It was a massive order to sell uh, in uh, in evening hours, or was in the US. So when there was no liquidity, this massive order futures, I mean, they just blasted through uh, selling a bunch of gold, and no one was quite certain. We're still not certain, but the speculation is now at the end of the week that it was a calculated order to try to manipulate the price of Bitcoin. Someone was looking to push Bitcoin higher, so they sent an order through to sell gold down, trying to get people, get some flight to, there's a flight to quality on things like that, where there is a cohort of folks who think Bitcoin or want Bitcoin to replace gold as that standard for value against inflation. So with that, we are seeing gold at an interesting level. We're also going to go through and Brian did that whole session earlier in the week on Fibonacci's. We're going to take a look at where the Dow is right now and do some technical analysis on the Dow because it sort of fits. And then we'll also run through quickly Nat Gas, because Brian was right. He was chiming in at the end of the session yesterday, like, hey, don't forget Nat Gas. And we saw some volatility yesterday. The price of Nat Gas collapsed. And then we'll also take a look at some critical levels of the pound yen. So we've got a bit to cover. So we'll do gold, the Dow, Nat Gas, pound yen. We're going to be doing a bit of everything. Brian, I'm going to flip it over to you, and let's just take a look. I've got this chart of gold up here. You can clearly see it, but I'll let you run through that, and then we'll jump over to the Dow.
Yep. Yeah. So here's my chart for gold. We talked about it earlier in the week, that big flash area. And again, I wasn't necessarily, yes, it was a very, very large move. I did not know it was going to happen. Excuse me, but it was already an area where we had talked about it. We had a previously violated zone. We had seen a lot of buyers step in there in the past, and it came down to base and then pulled back, and that's where the collapse came in. So we mentioned earlier that, this is an area we need to watch out for. And what's interesting is the flash, if you guys can see it, I'll make it big enough for you guys to see. The flash is actually not where the first test was. Here was the original zone. If I move it, I'm not going to do it for here. Basically, here was kind of the original zone of all of it, right? You can see that we had this drop, this kind of sideways movement, drop back down again, and then it pulled back and grabbed that level and dropped again. And then the flash piece came in later on. So what's interesting about that is that's right around the 1761, 1762 level, depending on, if you take it from really kind of the meat of it or just the very, very top of it. We're kind of sitting up there between really right around that 1761, 1762 area. We're there right now, right? Now, obviously, there was a catalyst that drove this down. I don't know what the catalyst is, but I do know whatever the catalyst is, it was big enough that we dropped from 1760 all the way down to 1680. So whatever it was, it had enough power to basically just blow through everything that existed out there. The realization of that is there any orders left in that catalyst, or had they all been removed, or could there potentially be some more sitting in there? Now, we're approaching that level now. We're coming into the US Open, right? And again, a lot of the a lot of the things that we've heard this week have been tapering already starting much sooner. So again, all these, I'd say all the news reports that we've seen or heard lately have all been pro-inflation, pro-cutting, pro the Fed. Biden said, "Oh yeah, the Fed, I'm sure they'll take care of it. They can do what they think is right." Kind of an interesting stance from him. It's kind of like, well, is that the approval that they can do it? Do you not want control over the Fed? So, kind of a very interesting comment. A lot of people are like, what does that even mean? Like, what is he talking about? So, yeah, I would say it's definitely an interesting place. We do have a little bit of news. We have this consumer sentiment coming in. The consumer sentiment should be important for this one, only because if consumer sentiment drops even lower, it is expected to be about the same as it was before. But if it drops lower, showing that people are starting to get really, really concerned, that should kind of put a curb on inflation, as well as that kind of sends gold on a fundamental basis back to the downside. Now,
Yep.
It hasn't had the best approach. I typically like when it's a faster approach, when you have candles like this, where you can actually see the bodies. The Europeans really didn't do much. And again, we always talk about what the European session has done. And European session started right there. Right there. Not really a lot of movement in any direction. And even if I try to stretch it out, it's kind of like it just pulled down and pulled right back up. And it's quite a lot of indecision. Okay. So, obviously it's hit the zone and it's kind of pulled back again, showing it that there are some sellers. The session open is going to be one of those things that kind of helps us out a little bit. And normally the way that we're trading this, and again, it's a good example. Here's the European session. Here's the 3 o'clock candle right here, right where I'm pushing. And then there goes down to the 9 o'clock candle. This tends to be a common trend that we see, that we have one direction in the European session. And then basically from here till there is the US session. This is kind of what we're dealing with. Here's the 3 o'clock candle, and that's where we're at right now. So a little bit different. And again, it is an area where we've seen sellers. We've seen the price be pushed back down from there. It hit it. That's where the big collapse was, and we've seen a pushback here. So it's one of those areas. I'm not saying that it can't go through it. I'm saying that it's going to have a little bit more power and push through it. But with any type of negativity around this, again, one of the bits of information that I saw just a little while ago, where is it? Massive Chinese port is shutting down. And again, they're talking about worldwide closures again. Something like this doesn't help gold in the inflation story. No. So, it's kind of one of those things that, whenever you hear things like that, you're like, port's closing down. And we'll see how the media kind of grabs it. Like I said, the media wants to report everything they possibly can. A closer of that, obviously the big hot news right now is, the hospitals are overwhelmed. And again, I do believe that some of that data is kind of taken out of proportion. When you look at the percentages of vaccinated patients, like the most vulnerable population is 65 to 74. I'm looking at right now, 93% of people in that age group are vaccinated. So it's like, I think that this is this Delta variant is probably a bigger issue and they're talking about. And again, they're talking about it for the wrong. I think that they need to be focusing on why other nations are doing it as well. And I don't know if you guys saw, the CDC approved a booster dosage for immunocompromised, but they said at the same time, there are countries in the world that don't even have their first dose. And that's going to raise some problems that, we talk about the inequalities in society. You're going for 3 in other countries. And we know the benefit of having at least 1 dose. We saw that in the UK. Their Delta variant has already flipped back down again. They're hoping that, and what they're saying is, I heard it yesterday, saying that they're hoping that the turn in Delta will occur probably the end of either this month or the middle of next month is when they're expecting it, based off of what they've seen in the UK. But because of our rollout, they expect that it could actually happen a little bit faster, which would be great news. That would be wonderful news out there. But yeah, so now they're raising some concerns about how, hey, we're going for 3 and other countries aren't even being given 1.
Don't have any. Yeah. How do you? It's a global problem.
It is. Yeah, it is. And Pfizer's
problem.
over here, they got lucky. They talked about that yesterday, about they had their patent cliff and this basically saved them. And what do you do with Moderna now? And they had some bad earnings. So the reality of the situation is there's a lot of negative news out there. Gold is pushing up to an area where we've seen sellers come in a massive way before. With the U.S. session open, it could be a potential short. Again, if you want to wait until that 9:30, 10 o'clock window after there's like that surge of retail traders coming in. That would probably be best bet on this one because again, trying to time it before the surge of buyers and sellers come in, maybe a little bit risky now. And again, it's we talk about the news factor that doesn't kick in until 10 o'clock today, so a little
Right.
bit later. But unfortunately, we didn't get a solid path. This is not really a the UK window here was not
No,
anything that was kind of telltale. Not like
it's a
yesterday.
creep.
Yesterday was a little bit easier. Came right into where area of buyers. Today, not so much. So, and again, it could have been that it was trying to push up, but those sellers stopped it, which again goes kind of with that kind of short,
And
potential for today.
in an environment like this, I do like to say that, where's the opportunity, and it is. You got to kind of wait and see. I like how you call it an if this then that
Mm-hmm.
situation. You got to give it a chance to see where it's going. But a way to potentially play this today would be with the binary options and taking a look at what you've got. And there are different duration binary options available throughout the day. In fact, I can bring that up real quickly. I mean, we've got our hourlies, then we'll have some dailies in the weekly ends at the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, there might be some different strikes there in the weeklies than what we got in the dailies, but everything ends today in 4.5
Yeah.
hours. So
And don't forget, this should be much, much higher. If you look at the PPI data from yesterday, PPI is another one of those gauges of inflation. Both of them almost doubled what the forecast was. So
right.
uh,
So and
it,
that's
it,
and
it should
that's
be
why
much
gold might
higher
still
than it
be doing a
is.
little bit of a creep, but there clearly are sellers coming in at
Mhm.
some point. You just don't know when. All right, let's
Yeah.
take a look over. Let's flip this over to the Dow,
Yep.
because we do want to cover some other stuff. And I know you had some, and I think this is and the recordings, by the way, are all out there. So if anyone's
Mhm.
looking for the recordings, they're on our YouTube channel. They're also on our website. But if you want to catch Brian's session on technical analysis, and
Yep.
he did quite a bit into the fibs, it is up there. It's on our. You can catch it and watch it
Mhm.
on demand. Share it with your friends.
Yeah, I mean, just at its most simplest basic form. On Wednesday, we talked about how there was a potential setup. We had a large push up, and I liked. Again, remember, I use fibs as a confirmation, not as the first piece. I use it as the second piece. A lot of people use it as first. It really doesn't matter each way. But we had an area where we had buyers step in. We found it on the lower time frame, and it just happened to be around the 50. Now, price did push a little bit higher. We hadn't got entry yet, so I mean, if you want to bring it a little bit higher, you can. And again, it's still there, the same level. 50% is right there. Our zone was just a little bit below. So, the original assessment was here. We were looking to get in at 35, 274 pushing higher. And you can see it came, if I extend this across right to there, there's your trigger from before. And again, it's just one of those things, whether you use a confirmation or don't use a confirmation, it comes up. I would say the reason why I like the Dow right now, again, none of the news we've seen this morning has really been horrible. The European session really didn't do much with it. It kind of drove it higher and gave us a quick pullback, and then now it's rallying forward. We're so close to that 35,500 at this point. We're about, what, like 75 away. It's one of those things that will get naturally kind of pulled up. We haven't really gotten to that level and maintained it and stabilized it. And if you look back, kind of what we've dealt with, yesterday and today, we do, definitely have some basing sitting in this level here. You have some a little bit of a pullback and a test of a level here. And then obviously this morning at around 7 o'clock, we had like kind of another level here and a pullback and touch. So it's nice to see that there's areas underneath that, again, they're building buyers and building buyers and building buyers. Now, if the consumer confidence does collapse and comes out like a 70 or something, that would put a kink in this. But I think 35,500 is something that we look to come up here and start stabilizing, particularly going into next week. I mean, the taper is not great, but I mean, right now everybody's getting, everybody's earnings look great.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I heard a bunch of people, they were talking about, oh yeah, we hit right on expectations, but our revenue was 15% higher, and they were super positive about the next quarter and the quarter that we're in. So even with everything going on right now, everything
the,
seems to be rolling
the
forward. And
company,
and
yeah,
again,
the economy's working. I mean, the companies are making money. The economy is working.
yeah. I mean, the only negative, I think Kramer was the only one that was negative yesterday, and all he was negative about was AMC. And how, the Reddit traders are manipulating the heck out of it. That was it. Everything else was like extremely positive.
Yeah.
And talking about where, everything's rolling good. And remember, just, when the economy is doing great, yes, the Fed is supporting, some of the economy and things, but tapering is not raising interest rates. The tapering isn't necessarily what hurts the overall indices. It's the interest rates because it makes lending more
Right.
expensive. So
And
that
the
hasn't
tapering,
changed.
they're still, I mean, tapering, they're still supporting it.
Oh
They're
yeah,
just supporting it at a little slower rate, but
yeah,
they're still plowing billions in. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you go, ooh, they're tapering. Yeah, this means they're not buying as many assets. And so instead
yeah.
of buying, uh, you know, X billion. They're buying X billion minus a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, it's 0.85%, Yeah, and it's not as sudden. Got to remember, an interest rate is an absolute sudden, hard, bam, everything changes right now. Everything got more expensive. You may not
Yeah.
be affected by the taper. In such a small amount, it doesn't necessarily affect things. But an interest rate change is an instantaneous smack right in the face. So
Yeah.
it changes everything. Lending rates, corporate bonds, everything across the board. And they're not really moving on that right now.
No,
So
and they'll broadcast that before they do it, so no one's totally surprised. So maybe we're setting up for Feel Good Friday. Hey, before we
Yeah,
jump
that's
over
what
to
I'm
the other
thinking.
things, I did want to show this real quickly because people had asked. We had questions during your session. Could you do this on Nadex charts? And there are drawing tools.
All of them were on Nadex, actually. Every
Yeah,
drawing that I used in the presentation was on the
and they
Nadex
saw
chart.
and all the pictures were, and people are just asking for the mechanics of it. I'm just going to go to the Fibonacci retracement real quickly. I click on it, and this is not going to be perfect, but we're in an uptrend. Brian went through all of this, but you start in the left hand corner, you go to your right hand corner of your trend, you click again, and then you could just drag it over to the right, and it will draw it on there for you. And Brian goes through it in a session. It's how you draw it. I chose this particular trend here. We could have made this, it all depends on where you want to draw it, but you can customize it if you want to, and you'll get your fib retracement levels. If you're in a downtrend, you would do it the other way around. Start in the upper left-hand corner and click down to the right side of the trend. Just a quick little lesson there. I wanted to show that it could be done. I know we're running out of time, and I love this, and I want people to go take a look at your session. But let's just jump into quickly do Nat Gas.
Is it up
and
yet?
the
I don't
pound yen.
even know. Is it up yet?
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying earlier. They're all up there. They're on
Oh,
the
okay.
YouTube channel. They're up. They went up yesterday. So yeah, you can review them at your leisure.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll touch on things. I'll finish the next two in the next minute and a half. So we're out of here. It is 9:02.
It's Friday. It's a Feel Good Friday,
Yeah.
and it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I mean,
when
we met on Wednesday, we talked about the news coming in here for the UK. Look to see if it was in a level, and again, there's your level, there's your drop back down, there was your target at 15,720. It was a zone that we talked about. It's black, so we were not interested in taking a long off of it. It was a target. I mentioned always when we had these levels of interest, when you have basing, there was your basing, there was your drop, your base, your pullback, your touch, and your drop down again. Now we just bounced off the 152.07. The reason why I'm talking about this level up top again, and again, this level comes in at approximately, I would say, right around 152.60. It is a level. We did have some basing right before it, and that's kind of where we're at right now. And I'm wondering if this one is going to leave without us. It's a level where we've seen buyers step in, so we have to acknowledge that they are sitting there. If you want to take it a bit more on the conservative side around the open, I would say that it's probably a bit higher, and like I said, probably around that 152.60ish range. But again, for those aggressive traders out there, 152.50 would be the area. The pound dollar is also kind of in a similar situation where you can see that we have basing sitting right here. I mean, we're sitting there right now. This is definitely not as strong, and it may punch higher into this level just above where we are. But it's two different pound trades, both setting up into areas of sellers. So kind of keep an eye out on that. I mean, it's been pretty strong since about 6 o'clock this morning. Both of them have had a lot of strength coming in. And again, at 6 o'clock, this is where we hit a zone on both of them. So look for a potential reversal today. Remember that their market closes a little bit early. And then as a parting kind of leaving, I would say that when I mentioned it yesterday, natural gas, remember guys, here's natural gas from yesterday. Okay. When Todd spoke right here at this 9:30 mark, we had a push up. You can see that there's a gap, and all it did was drop straight down. It blew through every single 2-hour binary strike that existed out there. And some days oil moves, some days natural gas moves, but you still got to look at the assessment. And a push up in the U.S. market right before news is a pretty telltale sign that, hey, we're going to have a drop. And again, had you taken advantage of it, it blew through 9 binary strike prices to the downside. It blew every single one of them out. Again, short duration binary contracts for news are the way to go. So that's all I got for today. I guess we'll see everybody on Monday.
Yeah. All right. With that, questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. Questions for Brian, please email him at support@keeptradingsimple.com. And we did kind of cover a lot today. That's because we were making up some ground after Brian was out yesterday. But gold at an interesting level, having climbed out of that hole following the flash crash on Monday. Interesting levels in the Dow. Particularly when you're looking, you throw those Fibonacci's on there. Nat gas, a little less in there.
Fibonacci, Todd. It's not pasta.
It's not.
It's Fibonacci. It's like deer. It's not
All right.
Deers.
All
It's Deer.
right. Fair enough. All right. Meanwhile, as I learned in your session, that's not even his name.
It's not even really his name. Yep.
I
Yep.
did not know that. I
Not even his
love
name.
that. I love that kind of stuff. All right. It is Friday the 13th, so everyone stay safe. Enjoy your weekend, and we will catch you on Monday morning. Good luck in the markets, everyone.